Trinidad and Tobago, get ready for a musical explosion of freedom, culture, and pure steel band magic.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus their talented youth bands.
So get ready for Generations of Steel,
the ultimate celebration of our national instrument.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus the talented young bands.
Experience the power and passion of Desperados,
Shell Invaders,
Massey Trinidad All-Stars,
First Citizens Supernovas,
and the pride of the South, Fun Play. Saturday, July 11th
at the iconic Grandstand, Queens Park, Savannah.
Save $100 and get your early bird tickets at $200 until Saturday, June 27th.
Get yours now. Available at ICNTT.com.
At Crosby St. James.
All Kenny Sports.
All Extra Foods Supermarket.
Westby, Tagarigua, Athletes by the Park.
Jumbo Foods, Barataria.
GAC Electrical, opposite Starlight, Tiggermarkton Main Road.
Mirage Westside Supermarket in Arima.
And all participating bands. Presented by Super Padman, Dane Gulston and Friends. For more info, call 732-3402.
Generations of Steel.
In every victory, there's a story. In every defeat, there's a lesson. And behind every headline, there's a truth waiting to be told. Next week, veteran sports journalist Andre Batiste takes you beyond the scores, beyond the medals, and beyond the controversy in a special multi-episode series. The good, the bad, and the ugly of sports in Trinidad and Tobago. Hear from some of the nation's top athletes, administrators, coaches, and the biggest names in local sport as they share their triumphs, challenges, frustrations, and hopes for the future. Airs Wednesday 10th to Friday 12th at 2:30 p.m. Only on WESN, the content capital.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
WESN.
Just played scruffy looking today. I'm Sean Michael Small. This is Talking Point in WSND Content Capital. And of course, the debate continues with regards to the SOE in the House. It's very interesting because I think, once again, I'm not sure if politicians understand what they say today will technically be on the record and will be tracked to see if it is consistent with what they will say tomorrow. What they said yesterday will be compared and contrasted to what they say today. One of the things with regards to the Prime Minister's contribution. This is the level of debate in our country. This is the sophistication, the level of sophistication we have to look forward to, right? That really gets to the heart of the issue, that really speaks to, you know, the true, when you strip down the problems and speak to the core, speak to the foundation in order to drill it down, in order to get the best solutions, because we've been doing this all around, all of us. The media, members of the public, we made a grave mistake. We made a grave mistake. We had the most ill-conceived perspective of all time when it came to a crime plan, because the Prime Minister gave us the grand revelation. Quote, you asked me about the crime plan, and I have to keep telling you, we do not have a crime plan. We have an anti-crime plan. And it's not probably the first time she said it, but it's the first time it's annoyed me to this extent. Because if the issue is about crime, debate crime. Don't debate the semantics of what you label your plan. Because the thing is, the PNM were not the ones that made famous the phrase, in a way, crime plan. Minister Hines was asked, what is your crime plan? His response, of course, turned a lot of heads. But generally speaking, to the general public, the term crime plan is general parlance. We don't need to now have a debate. Is it crime plan or anti-crime plan? Because I don't know about you, but merely switching up the terms, is it really that effective? Or is it just a schoolyard? Look at me, look how smart I am. I figured something out. You put anti in front of the name, it's so much better. Is that it? Is that the best you got? No, well, the Prime Minister believes she has more, right? Saying that the strategy is not just the SOE alone. It's one component of a broader anti-crime framework being implemented across multiple ministries. Too bad that we don't really hear about these things. Oh, I guess we can't let the criminals know about the social programs. You know, the same programs that have to engage the community, they're going to learn about anyway. We can't let them know about that. That level of operational security must always be secure. Youth and gender affairs and child protection, all of that. Yeah, we need, you know, every single thing. What after school programs now? Operational security. We don't know how to do anything else. Or is it that it's easier not to say anything because if you don't say anything, you can't be held to account? The population is not going to have expectations. The strategy combines, according to the Prime Minister, legislative reform, enhanced resources for the protective services, increased recruitment, international security partnerships, intelligence sharing initiatives, sustainable job creation programs. Okay, let's just break all of this down one by one. First of all, we ain't seen no sustainable job creation programs, right? Even in the job fairs or whatever they had, oversubscribed, and the promised jobs nowhere near delivered. Promises made, promises unkept. Then let's go to intelligence sharing initiatives and international security partnerships. Yeah, those existed already. I don't know if there's a different flavor of America under the UNC as opposed to the PNM, but when it comes to law enforcement partnerships, right, I'm fairly certain those existed already. At its heart, when it comes to crime fighting, yes, I understand it's a different American administration. The DEA, the ATF, the FBI, those are generally the same institutions. Now, you might say they might have different people there, but if we had the PNM or the TPP or the Patriotic Front or the NTA, we could have had anybody else. It more or less would have been the same Americans, right? So I don't know how that is something to boast about. It can't be CARICOM you're talking about with international security partnerships. Oh, wait, you want to take credit for the Shield of the Americas? I didn't realize the UNC took that to Donald Trump, and it's a UNC initiative. Oh my gosh, look at me. I signed an agreement with an ally, a pre-existing ally. Stunning and brave decision making here, folks. All right, let's go. Increased recruitment. All right, I'll give you that. Kind of, maybe. I do think the PNM also started that, by the way. So again, like at the very least, we need to see significantly improved results that can be tied back to increased recruitment. Because here's the thing about increased recruitment. Just because you get more bodies doesn't make you make the police service better. It's not just about getting more bodies, it's about getting the right people. I don't know if we're fully accomplishing that, but even more importantly, then it's the training, and then it's the enhanced resources for the protective services. All I'll say is this: you could have all the data you want to justify that statement, that part. The fact of the matter is, this government, decided it could not provide the extra money to ensure that the police service would have body cameras alongside its body armor. This government prioritized other things than resources to buy what has proven to be necessary equipment in order that police officers are fully equipped. That's the legacy of this government right now when it comes to crime fighting. Granted, yes, the PNM also did not do it. Here's the crux of the matter. We complained that the PNM was bad, right? We complained that the PNM didn't do their job, right? So we can't then say, well, because the PNM didn't do their job, the ANC don't have to do their job, and it'll be fine. Make that make sense to me? We can't complain about one party because we were complaining about the body cameras not being enough, not being sufficient, not being utilized, footage not being disclosed under the PNM. We didn't just change our tune after the election. So I am holding the next party to the standards I held the previous party. Two wrongs don't make a right. Two wrongs make two wrongs. So I don't want to hear no crap about, oh, well, the PNM this and the PNM that. They've been here for a year. They've been here for a year, and they made a choice. Their minister justified that choice, whether he was central to that choice or not, right? With a highly ridiculous argument. He thinks it's smart, but it's highly ridiculous. Because at the end of the day, it's not as though we've seen officers dropping like flies to lawlessness and gunfire. But what we have seen is the tanking of the police's reputation to the point where you might as well stop asking the public to help you. Because at this point, there's no goodwill left. You have literally sucked that dry due to sheer incompetence and a lack of strategic thinking. Resources for the police? Yeah, right. Oh, by the way, if we have all this extra manpower and resources, why is it that there are still necessarily concerns of police shortages with regards to certain things like, I don't know, officers at stations at night, patrols for certain things? We still have concerns about police being overweight because there's not enough bodies, right? And then let's go now to the legislative reform. The legislative reform, including the proposed Home Invasion Act, parole reform, criminal records legislation, and initiative designed to reduce recidivism. Now, that last point, yes, that would to some extent help, but it's indirect. Same thing with criminal records legislation and parole reform. That'll deal with some of the main frontline problems of the criminal justice system. Namely, how could we turn intelligence into evidence to charge people? Because even with the state of emergency, if we can't charge these people, then we have to ask how many lawsuits are coming down the pipe. And I will bet you all the money that they have extracted from the treasury, times infinity, pretty certain John Jeremy ain't going to be having to defend those cases in court. None of them is going to foot the bill. There ought to be a law, you know. There ought to be a law that they should have to foot the bill, personally. Once it gets to a ridiculous point. Obviously, one PDO, two PDOs, all right, fine. But if it looks like a pattern of behavior, perhaps there should be a law, that is not something to take lightly, by the way, as much as I'm saying it now. That is not something to implement lightly. Now, legislative agenda. So we have a lot of things that's done kind of around the major issues, in my opinion, of criminal justice. Look, we have a situation where you cannot smoke marijuana in public. It is illegal to do so, and yet the law has made it difficult for police to actually enforce that law. That's a low-level example. The high-end example is the anti-gang legislation being practically worthless. Other examples, well, the murder detection rate is dismally low. Now, it can be one of two things. There can be issues with the process and procedures and regulations around murder investigations with other things, or we don't have things like that, in which case more of the blame then needs to go to police incompetence. The less reasons you have of why investigations are ineffective, the more then you just have to point to incompetence. Which one is it? Commissioner of Police, please tell me. Which one is it? Which one do you want to say it is? And the thing is, I don't care what he says behind closed doors with regards to the legislation. If he says everything is fine, well, it just proves my opinion of him is probably an overestimation of his abilities, and I don't think he's capable for the job. So do with that what you will. And if he has been saying we have these issues, you don't get marks for that. One, we don't know that these discussions have been had, and two, we ain't seen any results born from it. The Home Invasion Act, I'll say this. I remember when they had made a whole stink about stand your ground legislation. What difference has it made in the lives of Trinidad and Tobago? Zip, zero, zilch, nada. As far as we're aware, it has had very little effect, if any at all, with regards to home invasions and the rate of home invasions. So a Home Invasion Act is to accomplish what? To make illegal activity more illegal? To increase the penalties? Increasing the penalties, that saves us how? 90% of the time they get away scot-free, so what's the point of having increased penalties? Which is similar things I said with the last administration, if you know, but maybe I'm misremembering. So the legislative agenda, even if all of these things were 100% perfectly effective, do not actually speak to the heart of the issue. One, a law to try to treat with one crime, which is technically already a crime. But you know what? Maybe they have some loopholes that needs to be dealt with. Fine. We'll see how that turns out. That is a proposed. The things that were actually passed, how do they actually stop crime happening? How do they deal with crime and encourage crime not to happen any further? No. What they do is they help make the prison service a little bit more efficient, encourage, to some extent, rehabilitation, but it doesn't actually do anything for ongoing active cases, for ongoing active criminals. It doesn't. And you know what hurts? You know what hurts? Our society's levels of crime. Anything that implies that the police are acting in a similar, less than legal manner. And the Samaru shooting does not do that on its own directly. But when you add in what the Minister and Commissioner said about body cameras and about CCTV footage, it heavily implies that, and I literally cannot think of a reasonable argument to dissuade any member of the public from thinking that or worse. That's why I'm upset, you know. It's not that I think there's some grand conspiracy of the police to do extrajudicial killings. It's the fact that I literally could not, there's nothing available to me to push back against any speculation that there is some sort of agenda to allow for some degree, not necessarily widespread every violent crime case, but some degree of extrajudicial killing. The authorities have put so much out there to harm the perception of their own integrity that I am left no choice but to watch this nonsense and say, how could you say that? Do you realize what you're saying? It's making you look crooked. Resources have been increased in the police service, defense force, and fire service. We can't get body cameras yet. I had a caller call me to tell me weeks, if not a couple months ago, that a media ambassador said that they were in the process of procurement of body cameras. And then a week or two ago, yeah, they have invited people essentially to tender. We're so far down the process, folks. The process is going to, the first stage, the initial stage, the opening stage, that might finish this month or next month or something like that. And given the fact that the commissioner apparently believes that he could do things on the cheap. It's funny. I appreciate the fact that you want body protection for the officers. You don't want to do that on the cheap. It's a shame that you also don't want to cheapen out when it comes to protecting the reputation of the police service and the very same officers. And then again, I just would like to know, the state of ministry is about 1%? Maybe it is. You can see, in theory, it's just that I don't have any reason to believe you. This sounds like, well, we need something else to justify the state of emergency. Because, you know, we said syndicates before. And then we said we dealt with the threat of the syndicates. But technically, the syndicates haven't been dealt with yet. And I would just like to know exactly what do you mean by criminal syndicates if the prospect of the gangs now coming together to form alliances frightens you now. Then what do you mean by criminal syndicates? Because apparently there was this grand conspiracy amongst the criminal gangs to threaten the government. But yet they're now talking about an alliance and you're now concerned about that? What is it? Is the 1% threatening the government? Is that what you're trying to say? This is, once again, more than the PNM, the UNC is showing in a widely interconnected way the downfalls of a lack of transparency and a lack of accountability. Because I'm going to end this part of the show with this. You could do probably, and this is a rough guesstimation, right? Don't hold me to it. But you could probably have done 99% of what the government has done. And all you need to do is improve communications. And 99% of the public outcry would have gone away. But no one ever accuse politicians of actually being good at their job. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay tuned.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Trinidad and Tobago, get ready for a musical explosion of freedom, culture, and pure steel band magic.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus their talented youth bands.
Get ready for generations of steel.
The ultimate celebration of our national instrument.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus the talented young band.
Experience the power and passion of Desperados,
Shell Invaders,
Massey Trinidad All-Stars,
First Citizens Supernovas,
and the pride of the South, Fun Clear. Saturday, July 11th.
at the iconic Grandstand, Queen's Park, Savannah.
Save $100 and get your early bird tickets at $200 until Saturday, June 27th.
Get yours now. Available at ICNTT.com.
At Crosby St. James,
All Kenny Sports,
All Extra Foods Supermarket,
Westby, Tagarigua, Athletes by the Park,
Jumbo Foods Barataria,
GAC Electrical, opposite Starlight, Diggermarkton Main Road,
Mirage Westside Supermarket in Arima,
and all participating bands. Presented by Super Padman, Dane Gulston and Friends. For more info, call 732-3402.
Generations of Steel.
In every victory, there's a story. In every defeat, there's a lesson. And behind every headline, there's a truth waiting to be told. Next week, veteran sports journalist Andre Batiste takes you beyond the scores, beyond the medals, and beyond the controversy in a special multi-episode series. The good, the bad, and the ugly of sports in Trinidad and Tobago. Hear from some of the nation's top athletes, administrators, coaches, and the biggest names in local sport as they share their triumphs, challenges, frustrations, and hopes for the future. Airs Wednesday 10th to Friday 12th at 2:30 p.m. Only on WESN, the content capital.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Problems trying to get aroused,
loss of libido,
and women who have problems actually trying to achieve an orgasm, something as simple as that. So all of those things tend to happen a little bit further along after the hot flashes and the night sweats, but they are real symptoms. They do exist and they get pushed under the rug quite a lot. So they are commonly underdiagnosed, they're underreported, they're underdiagnosed, they're undertreated.
I'm back here talking about the WSND Content Capital, of course, Sir Michael Small, joined by Inspector, retired, former acting ASP, disaster management expert,
right now,
Ashraf Ali.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
You're feeling how?
Right now I'm feeling abused, battered.
You're abused?
Yeah, I'm feeling abused, battered. I mean, Sean Michael Small.
There's a joke I want to make, but I don't know certain people well enough to make that joke.
But being abused and battered is like how many of our citizens feel right now.
Domestic?
No. Emotionally, physically, in some aspects of it. It may sound comical, but the reality is, remember, sometime last week a caller said that there's an emotional attachment, right? Psychological and emotional attachment when it comes to crime and violence. You may be, the victim alone is not the one who feels it.
Well,
right?
I think it's not just that. And a way to generalize my commentary on the government's statements, justifications, reasoning that they presented over this SOE debate. It comes across more that they're trying to sell us something. And I don't mean they're trying to sell new diabetes medication to diabetics. I mean they're trying to sell us a bridge that we don't need or a used car that we can't afford. They're trying to justify something, but the way how they're trying to justify it, different people are going to interpret it funny. They're going to say, why are you saying this or why are you saying that? And you can't be serious. And we need someone to actually deal with the problem, not just try to kind of sell us some buzzwords, which, generally speaking, track record of politicians in this country says we ain't going to see no results.
And there was a lot of debate as to whether or not the government of the day and their proposed crime plan, and we were discussing crime plan, anti-crime plan, but we wouldn't go through the semantics of anti-crime as opposed to crime, because the fact of the matter is that crime is at a, specific crimes are down, but generally if you look across the board, there are a lot of crimes taking place. So the public perception about how crime is taking place is high, so we cannot get away from that, right? So how do you deal with crime? There are several ways to deal with crime, and that is where a crime, my proper terminology is, what a proper anti-crime plan would do is there are stages or there are particular measures to address different categories. So generally, the first thing we have to talk about, how do we start to do prevention? Because we can't talk about arrest without prevention and detection in the middle. Prevention is the primary objective, because what you want is you want to prevent crime from taking place. You don't want to spend resources of investigating and deterring, because that is much more costly.
But prevention would be, the lion's share would be more functions of non-law enforcement.
That is the primary function of law enforcement.
It is.
It is. We have moved away from the prevention because we are always going on the reactionary aspect of it, of detecting, arresting, and putting before the court. Those are the reactionary aspects of it. The reactionary one is the one that we have in most amount of problems with, because the statistical data shows that our detection rate is poor.
Yeah.
Because of our preventative measures are not put in values, because preventive measures means to have two sides of it. There's a hard preventative measure and a soft preventative measure.
What would be some preventive measures from law enforcement side?
From law enforcement side, our main preventative measure is presence. Physical presence on the streets.
But we've had...
No, we have not.
Times of physical presence?
That is the difference. We have pockets of physical presence, because physical presence means something different. It means a mindset change in the organization and how to function. So let me give an example, and a very real example. During carnival period, you see a vast number of persons coming on the streets. And I've always said, one of the reasons why you could put 1,000 police officers, you could put 2,000 police officers. It will not change significantly the amount of crimes. You know why? Because the culture of the persons of Trinidad and Tobago, the responsible nature of law-abiding citizens within that period, you see the bulk of the law-abiding citizens on that period. Because it is about not committing petty crimes or anything like that. It's about trying to enjoy themselves. So there's a reduction in the workload of police officers, because police officers only have to have presence. The law-abiding citizens complying with the law. What are they doing? They're enjoying themselves for carnival. On the streets of, you have a small pocket who trying to commit criminal activities. Take that, and bring it to the normal day outside of carnival. What happens? You have multiple activities taking place in the organization, law enforcement organization, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And the other supporting agencies have to go back to their daily functions. And their daily function does not only surround physical presence on the road. They have other aspects of it. So for carnival, all the other aspects is sacrificed. So you bring that bulk of resources to presence, physical presence on the streets. That's why you see from Sunday night or from Carnival Friday, there's exercises taking place, road checks, all of that taking place, because all the resources are concentrated for that period.
So is it just a matter of shifting human resources around and prioritizing that more? Because, or dare I say, because now there will be some people who would speculate with regards to other reasons why the level of presence is not what you're saying it should be.
Remember I said, I support the state of emergency. I support a state of emergency. Let me put it this way. I support a state of emergency. I don't have intelligence, or I'm not in a position to say whether or not whatever information is presented to the National Security Council doesn't need a state of emergency, right? So I'm supporting the state of emergency because from watching it from outside, the level of crime and reading the amount of crime taking place, you realize that we really need the state of emergency. However, the state of emergency cannot be without the first primary concept, which I'm just simply saying here right now. In your basic anti-crime plan, you need presence. Do we feel the presence of the law enforcement in a state of emergency that right now? If I can have a poll across board, I could tell plenty of persons will say no, because it is business as usual, right? Criminal elements are allowed to traverse communities as normal. We are in a state of emergency, so you have to sacrifice some of your rights and privileges that you have. That is one of the sacrifices we have to make as a citizen and as a country if we want to change this mindset and come out of what we're still in. If you know you can't go out in the night online because of the state of emergency, you need to cut. You are the law abiding citizen start to say, the police will be outside there, will be asking me questions. I don't want to be asking any questions because we are in a state of emergency. I am not here for criminal intent, so I stay home. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm abiding by it because I expect to see police officers there. I don't want to be harassed in how they use the word, or be stopped by police and asking all sorts of questions, right? But what are we doing? When you look at what is taking place, do you see presence? The police service and law enforcement are operating just like business as usual on a normal day running. It is not any different. You can go to a police station at any hour and make a report. During a state of emergency, I am saying you should not be allowed to go to the station every single day, any hour, and make a report, depending on the nature of the report, right? It has to have some limitations, where because you don't want officers only sitting in a station awaiting reports. We want presence. You want police officers present. Police officers, I heard the association and my colleagues say that yes, police officers are working beyond the call for a long while. But is it all police officers are working beyond the call? No, they are not.
Well, there goes to the speculation some people would have with regards to why we don't have the presence.
Exactly, because you have to reduce the amount. Now, there's a lot of things that has to happen behind the scenes, and the public has to accept this. I'm just trying it out. It could be a suggestion or a possible strategy that small stations, right, may have to close earlier or close their doors for a particular period. And if you have to make a report, you go to the main station in the area, not the smaller station, because you want to pool resources. You need to pool the manpower resources to increase presence.
And just so people understand, you might still have an officer to secure the station, but if he's taking reports, then he's not securing the station.
And the station assets is only to be secured, not functional in terms of full function of taking all the reports. So because remember, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has an open door policy. That open door policy may have to be suspended in the state of emergency period, where I'm saying that not all stations are going to take reports.
Well, you see, and in an indirect way, this speaks to what I'm saying, right? The SOE seemingly is there because they do have deficiencies in the legislature. So how do we lock up these syndicates, right, which are ill-defined, have not been defined by the politicians, the public, right? And is it the gangs? Is it transnational crime? Is it an alliance of gangs? Well, apparently it's not an alliance of gangs, because now when someone started to talk about the gangs allying, all of a sudden that seemingly was a new fear for the government. So what is it? But with regards to, like, take this for example, because you would think if I am trying to think of a solution, I'm going to look at what are the challenges, I'm going to look at what are the potential solutions, and how do we massage the situation. Like what you just said there, if we need more bodies, perhaps we, for certain hours of the night, you know, limit the number of officers in smaller stations and essentially close it down so that we have more bodies available on the night shift to do whatever, right? But to me, at least with regards to leadership, they're just thinking, how do we sell this and sell ourselves and make it look as though we're doing something as opposed to doing something? Because when one of the statements is, well, the SOE is necessary to protect children. Well, my issue is the children are dying with an SOE anyway. So obviously, just the SOE alone, and it goes back to what you're saying since the very beginning, obviously just the SOE alone ain't gonna do everything. And we're not hearing what is the everything else behind the SOE, because Prime Minister said it's one component. But when you look at the legislative agenda and the policy changes and so forth, it seems everything else is, in terms of strategy, the normal business as usual stuff that we might have seen from the previous administration, which only works so far, and the SOE is there to keep the PDOs in place.
And so, this is not a defense to anybody. If the PNM was there, and when the PNM administration was there, and they bring an SOE, I said the same thing.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean by the very beginning.
So, this is not a defense for anybody, right? And I'm not defending the SOE. I'm defending.
Well, I'm not necessarily decrying it either.
No.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that an SOE is a strategic plan to deal with a particular situation that was out of control. Right? State of emergency, that is what it is. We were in a state of emergency because of high crime, specific type of activities that had a potential to cause civil disturbances and cause mass violence. SOE was for that. But up to this time, this might be the fourth, or we went through almost an entire year with the SOE. We on almost 6 months again, and we've not been into another SOE. I am simply saying that yes, the SOE is part and parcel of a plan. It's only a part and parcel of a plan. What is the other plans? Because take away the SOE. Let's say the SOE did not take place. We didn't have an extension for discussion purposes. Did it change? Would it change anything today? Would it change the mindset of the criminals of not committing crime? Did it change the mindset of police officers or the strategy of police presence? It's not going to change. Is it changing the way that police officers investigate crime or the level of trust and confidence that the public has in the police to bring information? It will not change anything.
Because let's take this aspect for an example. When they say they want more officers, and we kind of said, I believe we said similar things when the PNM did it, because they had a whole budget where they said we're going to increase the officers. Yeah. And then that January, so it was a few months after, they had an exercise. It made the papers. We saw the classes in the economy, whatever. We didn't really hear anything, any fruit born from that tree, at least not yet. But I think one of the things we spoke about was the fact that you could try and hire 10,000 officers today. And let's just for argument's sake say, you could get the 10,000 officers today. And you could get enough instructors to teach all of them to the usual level that all academy graduates get. And you put them on the street. Is that really going to be that effective? Because you have 10,000 inexperienced officers and not enough experience. You can't just put rookies on the street and just expect, oh, they'll solve everything.
That is one side of it. The flip side is that there will be a significant change in the mindset of individuals, because this is what our society operates under. We like to be policed. We like the big stick behind you, telling you what to do and telling you what not to do. And so you have an opportunity to confront and make an excuse why I should do it, or why I shouldn't do it, and why I shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. Not understanding there's a right and wrong for everything. This morning I'm coming down the road, and it's a very good sign to see that on the interchange by Grand Bazaar, there were 3 police officers at the interchange, cyclists, right? So it's good to know that the police officers are out there. But the irony is that they can't do anything different. You know why? Traffic is still there. But they're present. So, but persons might argue, why is all this traffic still here at the interchange, and police? The police cannot deal with the traffic because it's bigger than them. It is a lot more wider than just police presence. However, The police presence there eliminates the delinquent drivers, adding to the problems of the traffic.
I just wanted to add, because you said we behave, well, I'm paraphrasing, we behave in a manner that suggests to authorities we want to be policed. We want police to actively police us, right?
Yeah.
Except when we actually get policed and we complain about being policed.
Exactly.
And the reason why, with what you said with the intersection situation, if those police officers then started to direct traffic, you know, at least half of the people would say, but boy, they're doing it stupid. What are they interfering for? Get out the way, you're messing it up.
Exactly.
And to tie back to my previous point, because I didn't get to the conclusion, if you put a set of rookies now into a situation where they don't have the experience, it's one thing to do that. But what we haven't heard from either administration is, if you're doing that, how are you going to compensate for that, to manage that situation, right? Because once they get into interacting with the public, and you get a bad interaction, this is not a point in time where the police have a whole set of public goodwill that they can afford to lose a little bit right now, obviously.
And it's the reality of what the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has to acknowledge and face. Saying anything differently is not going to help. Acknowledge we don't have a good public image. We do not have we don't have the level of trust or confidence that is needed in the first phase of preventative measures, right? When you're dealing with a anti-crime plan, prevention, because we don't have public engagement. The public does not trust the police, and it will take some doing. It is not going to happen overnight. It is going to take some doing to get the public to trust police officers. To some degree, it's going to be very incremental. I can tell you that. Because to get trust, to have personal trust in someone, in your own personal life, it takes a while to build that trust. Imagine you are trying to trust someone in law enforcement. You don't even know, right? And you always have a difficulty with certain things happening. So it's going to be difficult because prevention. So let me give you a real example. This actually happened. This actually happened to me, right? Last weekend, some thieves decide to go into my property and borrow all the tools that I have that they lend me. Good? And they took it and gone about their business. I made a report to the station, and it didn't happen to me. It happened to some other persons within the area. Mind you, there's CCTV cameras within the neighborhood. The police did in fact take the report, so it's commendable that they did, right? They had other reports similar to that nature. But here's the catch. 3 o'clock in the morning, around 3 o'clock in the morning, Sean, those individuals felt comfortable walking through communities, looking into persons' homes, and looking for opportunities to take things. 3 o'clock in the morning, when you and I are comfortably taking a rest. How does a state of emergency deal with that? When criminal elements and persons who want to do crime are felt comfortable walking through communities during that period to commit offenses, when the police officers who we talk about when we hear all the analysis they're talking about, they have strategies to know the predictive measures of when crime is taking place. Yeah, we know all of that. The data they have, they say there's no crime taking place. Let's be real. Those periods where criminal elements like to move is when you have not enough police officers moving around the area, because the reality is you don't have the amount of manpower in the organization to traverse those areas, because the criminal elements know. The same way that we look, the law enforcement operating with a anti-crime plan, the criminal elements have what we call a anti-crime plan, because they're looking for a plan to counter.
An anti-crime plan.
Right. To counter all the measures that the police, because listen, they sit, they analyze, they have a network, they know where police officers operating.
So this is one of my issues. They want to keep things from the public, but in my mind, I'm like, but you're going to be interacting or engaging with the criminals. They're going to figure it out. You might get a day or two. Like, and yes, when they first announced the state of emergency, yes, that was a time when you gave up the element of surprise that could have been useful. It is what it is. But in the long term, it seems like they're more concerned about withholding information from us, because half the time the criminals know about it anyway. They know who you've arrested already. They know what you've charged already. They're gonna figure it out.
And so we can't take them for granted that they don't know what they're doing, right? They know fully well, because in order for someone to continue going about causing or doing crime and not get caught means what? You're doing your job good, right? Right?
Yeah.
You doing your job good, law enforcement is not. Because why? You are not being caught. Is a give and take. So this is the reality we're facing.
Well, the thing is, to me, one of the reasons why I think people are encouraged to break the law is that very fact there. That, and I don't know, yes, presence would help, obviously. More police would be available in more convenient locations because we've seen situations like in town during the day when there's crime in Port of Spain, the police, give chase, and in like 5 minutes they stop the car, they get the people, whatever, right? As long as the criminals don't figure out a way to, blend into the crowd, the police have done a good job with that. Once, you're not trying to get someone to respond to something, I don't know, in some deep country area from a San Fernando station, or the police resources are too far away. But if we were able to cause criminals to face consequence. Just the other day, I'm driving around Savannah, coming to the station in the morning, and I see someone chuck a brown paper bag. It might have been in the morning, it might have been in the afternoon. And I'm like, well, part of the reason is that person feels there's literally zero confidence to do this. What am I going to do? Am I going to stop? Because it's in Savannah, right? We're not talking about some side street. I can't stop to pick up the bag just so, because I was also coming to a corner. No one is expecting me to stop suddenly. I'll cause an accident. What am I supposed to do then? Chase him down and so he has no consequence, so he feels, yeah, just chuck it.
You have, and there's nothing much, and because he has no consequence, and all the risk factors associated with what you say you're going to do, or if you do, and you're analyzing that, you say, hey, the two more risk factors are available to it.
Yes.
So I may have to turn a blind eye towards it. I'm not.
It's the one good thing about the SOE, because it seems as though PDOs have put a damper, not stopped, because we still have about 300 murders, but has put a damper on the murder rate, which is the one clear positive.
And I agree. One aspect of it, of the overall type of crime, is down. But when you look at the other aspects of it, because you have other non-violent crimes or petty offenses, together with shootings and other home invasions and robberies, other type of violent crimes are actually higher. Now, when you look at data analysis when it comes to crime, not because certain crimes are down means that everything is okay, It just means that people doesn't have confidence in reporting anything at all. There are a lot of persons who have been victims of crime and say, listen, it makes no sense reporting it. So you have a pocket or a group of individuals who just not reporting any crimes for different reasons.
Well, also, when trust and confidence in the police is down, and you think, if I report it, even if you had faith in the police, people will view reporting crime as risky. Because you don't want them to attack back and come after you again. You don't want reprisals.
And so even so we keep going around and telling persons, put in cameras, have neighborhood watch, do this, do that, have community groups, engage with the police. All that is good. But when the crime takes place, and a crime actually takes place, and all that has been put in place, and nothing has happened, nobody has been held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
All the cameras in the area, you can't get a footage. You may get physical footage, or you might get footage, physical features of the individual, but no one will be held court.
Mm-hmm.
What next? So the reality is that yes, all those measures have been put in place, but then at the end of the day, is all those measures is in correlation to the amount of persons held and killed for offenses correlating to all the measures that somebody is putting in place?
Well, that kind of leads to a question I want to ask you, because the Prime Minister is quoted to have said to withdraw the measures now prematurely, which I assume is the SOE, so it's the same measures, I don't know if it's measures, would be for us to surrender hard-won ground and imperative investigations of singular national importance. Now, dare I ask, we have reduced the murder rate, but is there anything happening that suggests that the government is making these gains actually sustainable outside of the SOE? Because the time in between SOEs, we had one weekend where we had 3 to 4 mass casualty shootings with automatic weapons?
Now, from a law enforcement perspective, I could understand why that statement is relevant. And I will explain that one.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the investigations that may be going on behind the background might need more time that is necessary, because it might be a little more technical in terms of pulling information, because I remember there's the trust and confidence and the way that people want to give information is limited. So there's a more structured approach trying to get more information to build a case. Yes, we can say that persons have been arrested on, have been detained on PDOs, and we have not seen anybody charged as yet. And this is why I'm saying that the level of investigation based on the nature of the persons arrested and what they are arrested for, when you read some of the information on the PDOs that was presented in the public domain,
mm-hmm.
it's along the lines of criminal activities and organized crime activities supporting, and those type of things are in-depth, and you need a lot of information to support a case when a matter has to be presented to DPP. So I could understand.
This is to get charges.
Yes. So for charges. So this is the arrest. You have to bring information to go to DPP to say, hey, yes, you can charge because you have sufficient evidence to charge. It's good. It is taking some time, and I could understand and the decision, because after all of this SOE, this extension, in my opinion, is needed, because you can't drop the ball now, because you may have been in a particular position building that case over a period of time. And if the SOE is not extended in this next 3 months, then you have to face this. You may be in a position right now that and that's I'm saying hypothetically, that they may need the next 3 months to present the case. At the end of the next 3 months, Sean, then we'll have to determine whether or not all those PDOs, persons should be before the court for whatever offenses that they say they claim.
I mean, I can understand, because my thing too initially was, because you could debate, is the justification worthy? Because we're talking about suspension of rights. And that's a separate conversation. So, but the immediate needs right now is, could you imagine what the murder rate will look like if we stop the SOE? It might take, we might get a few months of peace like what we saw after the PNM's SOE.
Yes.
You know, but that had a carnival and election influencing that, right? Or we might get what we saw in the month where the murder rate didn't necessarily skyrocket, but the level of crime got back to that level of violence that alarmed us in the initial point. So I think it's reasonable to assume that the murder rate would climb back to almost 60 a month. So I could understand keeping the SOE. The thing is, I am fairly certain there will always be a set of investigations that are not finished for whatever the cutoff point is.
So, for me, I could understand. I'm supportive of it, not because I'm a law enforcement, my background is law enforcement. I understand some levels of investigation and the nature of some investigation. You need some time to deal with certain type of crimes. The type of crimes that we're talking about, organized crime does not happen, investigation doesn't happen overnight to bring down organized crime. There is, in fact, organized networks in Trinidad and Tobago.
But here's the thing, though, and now we get into some real nitty-gritty, potentially constitutional stuff. Is organized crime investigations worthy of a state of emergency? Because arguably, investigating organized crime is years.
However,
and a state of emergency is not meant to exist for years.
So when I say organized crime, and I'm a quote the commissioner when he said there's organized syndicates taking place, criminal syndicates coming together to working against, right? Remember, he said something along that line.
It's just given the government's reaction to gangs allying, it makes me wonder.
No,
which one?
Sean,
when are they coming together? Did they come together then? They're coming together now.
Trinidad and Tobago and the general public may or may not want to acknowledge that the criminal elements have infiltrated, have been part of a lot of different areas in Trinidad and Tobago.
I would argue the public at this point assumes that to be true.
They assume.
Not just assume, probably assume too far.
There has always been the criminal elements involved in crime at different levels, because certain things cannot happen in isolation. And when I say crimes, we have to also use the word corruption at the same time with it, because you can be corrupt but not commit any crime, but you're facilitating processes for crime to take place. So in the whole context of organized crime, you are a facilitator, you are participating in one stage of persons operating in crime, right? So it is a big network, but when information is presented and I just say information, not facts, you can't put it the facts.
Yeah.
Facts has to go certain places. When information is presented as to where the crime takes place, we only hear some aspects of it. And we know a call coming in just now. I coming up the road this morning and I heard something on the media where Mr. Aboud, Fisherman and Friends, made a statement that this government said a 1% is blaming the Syrian and Lebanese population. That is an indictment on him, eh?
To some extent,
that is an indictment on him, because he has clearly he has acknowledged that 1% reflects the Syrian and Lebanese. At no point in time have I heard directly from anybody that 1% speaks directly to those individuals. It is assumed, or it is, I should say, it is assumed that is what you're directing the conversation towards and who is considered to be 1%. But by saying that, I hope he knows what he is saying.
The sad part is, I'm fairly certain the 1% is not just of one ethnic group, right? And the 1% that is corrupt is not just of one ethnic group.
So
you could say that some of the richest of the 1%, but 1% is not a small fraction or not a small number of people compared to our national population.
And then we keep using the word the 1%ers. The 1% is not, and I agree, is not an ethnic group.
We imported that from the States. That's part of the problem.
Exactly. So when he comes out when he comes out and make a statement like that, I listen to that statement and I say to myself, you really understand what you have just said? Because you have clearly concretized the perception of plenty persons that you are acknowledging that they're talking about this individual.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. You have then put it in the public consciousness that these are the guilty parties. And we're not debating whether they are guilty or not, but we're saying to some degree, Mr. Boone might have actually done more damage that he is complaining about. He has actually done more harm for his own cause by conducting or framing or his timing or what have you. We have Claxton Bay waiting on the line. Caller, apologies. Good morning, you're on the air.
Yeah, morning.
Morning.
Yeah, morning, Sean and the ASP there. Sean, believe you me, throughout, I believe Trinidad, they believe, kill them dead, that this 1% that they've been hearing every time, the Syrian, Lebanese and them, that they are the people who run in this country and they are the people who dealing with drugs. That is what people, that is the perception that is out there, That is the belief in people's mind. And that is a kind of concept that the same system and the same government who are in party today make people believe, that these people alone is the people who doing a lot of harm and wrong in the country. But I could say for myself, we've been hearing long time, business people and other people are dealing with the same drugs and all kind of thing, right? Not now, long time we've been hearing that. You understand? When we check it out, we have, but this thing is so tied up, and you have this ASP right there. He know a lot. He know a lot is what is going on in this country. What we have to do, Miss Bissessa said something, she said that they're going at the white collar crime. If she's going at white collar crime, she had to start in her cabinet and starting to say all those who have cases before the court, all you go and clear your names. Just like how she said to Jack Warner, she tell Jack Warner, go and clear your name. I find when she started to do that, I will believe, well, yeah, boy, we country on a new turn. You understand? Because she want to really have a clean slate. Unless she do that, Sean, they only putting things out here to the public, and making you believe that they're going to do this and they're going to do that, But them ain't going to do nothing. Unless you could clear that slate from that cabinet, then I go know, well, then you really mean what you're saying. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, caller. And I think, let's be frank, general public assumes all political parties are corrupt. And I think it goes back down to we'll believe that you will actually try to deal with these things, but don't do it selectively. One of my issues was, well, you're going to investigate white-collar crime. Well, we had the whole Brent Thomas thing, which was internal to the government. We hear nothing about that. You can't solve that. You're going to solve white-collar crime. But let's be a little bit more actual practical now. On some level, what have we seen with regards to the trigger pullers with the murder rate? What have we seen with regards to the automatic rifles? When the SOE is in place, they put that away. They go to ground. We could use the SOE to try to go after white-collar crime. They don't have an issue suspending operations for a couple of months, even a year. White-collar crime is something you could pick that up at any time. You could wait it out. And at this point, it's not a case where we're just dealing with street gangs that they need financial resources to survive day to day. The white collar, the 1%, right, criminals, whoever the big fish would be, they might not like it, but they can survive. They could wait out the SOE. They could suspend their operations or whatever you pick up from the operations. All right, that's nice, you got that. And they'll know when to cut off like a gecko, cut off the tail and escape. And to me, if you want to deal with white-collar crime, you can't just deal with it within an SOE, because you can't maintain an SOE. You will never be able to maintain an SOE long enough, especially if you're trying to say, well, it's not a permanent situation.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sean. So that you see, when any administration use the word white collar, everybody jump the bandwagon and say politicians deal with politicians first. I mean, it's unfortunate, right? Because the public perception is that once you are holding those high offices and the highest offices in the land, you're not supposed to be, or should not, you should be above scrutiny. Your integrity should be of such a nature that is an example that you are setting for the rest of the population.
But also, if it looks as though law enforcement isn't going after what's perceived to be corruption, then doesn't that encourage people, hey, well, if they could get away with it, I could get away with it?
No. Here's the irony behind that. There are persons who know for a fact that their family members are involved in crime.
True.
There are persons who know for a fact that their family members who are part and parcel of law enforcement or any state enterprise are involved in different type of activities, corrupt or otherwise. Yet, they would not say anything about it. They would have conversations in closed doors, because at the end of the day, they don't want anybody to know that I know about that, and I don't want to sell out this one and sell out that one. Let me put it this way, you have just contributed to the organized crime and the criminal activities of the others by just not saying anything at all about it or bringing it to the forefront, because you're accepting it, you're acknowledging it. And this is, when you take that and expand on that, that is where our society continues to expand. So in the home, your child is bullying, you make excuse for why the child is bullying, and it extends into the child going into the environment, committing an offense. You say that you make excuse for the child. So society starts to make excuse for the child, and then you start to go further. When you go further now, then you start to make excuses, and after a period of time, all of that becomes an acceptable behavior. Acceptable behavior right now is if police is not wrong, use your shoulder, break the traffic light, because why? I have to reach to work by this time.
Yeah.
I have to reach to work. I'm a law-abiding citizen, you know. I'm not involved in crime. I am not involved in crime. But I had to reach work for a particular time because I have mouths to feed, bills to pay, children to take care of. Not understanding that you're contributing, you're not contributing, you didn't commit a crime, but you're doing offenses, you're breaking the laws. But you're making, but society is now accepting certain behaviors because why? You're making a defense on excuse why it is acceptable. Good?
Well, because I think we are so accustomed to informal laissez-faire style, but what we need to understand is maybe at one point it was, well, I'll just do it this time. But the problem is, yeah, maybe you could stick to that. But at some point, generations down the line, it's not, well, I'll just do it once. I'll do it all the time. And that's what we see now.
Now we keep going, and we keep the cycle continues. So when you look at organized crime and / levels of corruption, it is in part and parcel of everything that on how we do. When you go to a business, and you want to go in front of the line, and I see a partner, hey Sean, hey, we're going out, Sean.
Because right now, one of the things with regards to certain public services, let's put it that way, part of the reason they have a line is because they want something. Essentially, it's, well, the line is very long.
Wait in the line.
Wait in the line. Wait forever in some cases. If you actually want to get through, not even to get to the front, just to get through and not wait forever, what you going to give me for that?
Or somebody should call. Hey, I'm coming in so and so, you know X, Y, and Z.
You see, but the problem is, because we've allowed this horrid inefficiency to the point where some of it is corruption, and it hides itself as inefficiency, then we need to start off with the precursor to corruption, just to get the system functional. And the problem is, it's the precursor to corruption, because those are the doors that then, once you open those doors, corruption will come through. The whole, I need a favor. Then all of a sudden is, giving out favors for money. Then all of a sudden is, I am the one in charge. Hey, I mean, I will always give Alexander props for that situation with immigration.
Yes.
Because that's basically what it was.
But everybody went.
Minister Alexander. So apologies.
Everybody made a statement. And I can remember when our former acting commissioner, Mr. Jacobs, spoke about a situation in the port. Did he not mention that? How it came through?
Hey, listen. Right now in the ports,
they took him to task.
Right now in the ports, you are to wait on customs to clear your goods, right? Or whoever has to clear your goods, right? I assume it's customs, right? But as long as they don't clear your goods, you can't take your goods. But as long as your goods are in the port, through no decision of your own, it's stuck on the port, you have to pay fees. Now, if that is not setting things up for the informal, unstated, under-the-table demand for some extrajudicial fees, I don't know what is.
John, that is one aspect of it.
And when government agencies are operating this way, it is really hard to tell normal citizens, hey, y'all had to obey the law, you know.
I have heard reports, alleged, so I'm not going to confirm anything at all, that persons who even have to get electrical supplies, house supplies for the electricity, certain type of, how I should say, layman term, grease the wheel to work. So even in our own everyday running, when it comes to getting services, state services, now mind be you, when you finish all of that, you have your bills to pay, right? So the issue is that you want to do everything by the book to make sure that you get doing things by the book. You have to pay to get things done by the book. You're going through a process, and you have to pay to do the exact process that they're asking you to do. Why it is that we keep having to pay additional for persons to do what they are supposed to be doing?
And this is the thing. So when a government says we're going to go after white-collar crime, first of all, they never give detail about what that means. They just say white-collar crime, right? Notice, and to your point, they never identify what exactly is the 1%. They just say the 1%. Yeah. Now, the one thing they identified was bankers. Is it really just limited to bankers for facilitating crime? And to what degree does the banks not have an easy time of tracking money laundering? Because at some point we factor on all of that. You would think it's not some bank manager saying, yeah, just bring the money in the bags and let's wash it.
No, I say there are different, like when you look at white-collar crimes, there are different levels, there are different categories. The higher you go in the scheme of things, in terms of the high-end, high-collar crimes, when you're dealing with documentation, company information, transfer of, that is not happening. Is not easily detectable because we're talking about persons who are proficient in the scheme of things, put in documentation. So it is not going to happen overnight to deal with those type of things, you know.
But also the whole make a phone call, get a favor. It might seem so benign when 90% of the population does it. But those windows are also some of the windows that the big fish utilized to move their stuff around without notice, right?
And we use we like to use the term the big fish, and we have never saw any big fish caught. In our current environment in Trinidad and Tobago, there's no longer any big fish alone. Forget the big fish mentality alone. They are big fishes. The small fishes have advanced. There are persons, and I can say this, persons don't understand. Criminals use legitimate laws, regulation, to convert their criminal activities and to legitimize them. It have criminal elements in this country right now who have been involved in criminal activities, have not been caught or arrested and charged. So this is information. This is knowledge that a lot of us know. Allegations. They have businesses running. They have companies registered to their names. They have contracts that they have secured, legitimate governmental contracts, not by this administration. For a number of years, they have been running legitimate businesses.
And we're not just talking one demographic.
Not one demographic. So I'm talking across Trinidad and Tobago, across the demographics of Trinidad and Tobago. So when people believe this whole thing about the 1%, yes, 1%ers are not a certain racial demographics. Alone. That 1% we're talking about is a high-end business individuals, or I should say persons who are involved in that high-end 1%ers. And let me rephrase how I say that. When we talk about the 1%ers, we talk about the 1%ers in terms of economics, business, right? When I talk about this 1%er, I'm talking about the 1% in terms of criminal activities. I'm not linking both of them together, please.
Right.
Right? Because I am not going to say any of the 1%ers. I am not going to sit here and on your station and put myself in jeopardy by stating that
all 1%.
I'm accusing it. But there's a percentage of the population that is dealing with criminal enterprises at a high level that we're not aware of.
And the thing is, this is not unique to Trinidad and Tobago.
It is not.
And obviously, they are not putting their money and trying to wash it in a way that's going to make it obvious. Oh, where did you get $100 million between this year and last year? No, they're going to have methods that are tried and true, some of which discovered or developed abroad, right? And you follow the patterns, because the patterns are in and of themselves designed to evade our laws, and our laws have to have certain freedoms in order to function as a democracy, as capitalism, and so on. We're not a police state. If we were a police state, then yeah, you could track and stop anything, but we're not.
So there are. Let me give it two examples. There are a number of persons, and we talk about how firearms and ammunition coming into this country. It's not coming in by plane alone. It's not coming in by cargo. There's a smaller quantity, but the mass amount is coming in by our shores, borders. Who's bringing it in? The same individuals that people say is a big fish is not a big fish. It's a small men who knows that area, who knows the water courses, who knows the channels to go from here to Venezuela, who knows the ground connection, because the ground connection on the ground who bring it in. And when those individuals bring it in, we say it's a big fish paying fit. Sean, it's not a big fish paying fit anymore. It may be so. Because of how the crime and criminality is taking place. Because persons have no consequences to face.
It's a free for all.
They're now jumping into the bandwagon. How many persons, how many of these so-called fishermen are actually fishermen? But you know what? It is easy for the fisherman to register a boat and get a fisherman license. we are all fishermen. Same thing where we have persons who are, right now, you get a license, you can drive a vehicle. But we have a number of PH drivers, and who actually are PH drivers, because we defending this whole PH thing to the extent because of the fact that when you are defended because it has a pro and a con towards it, right? They serve the purpose. But within that body of PH drivers, and who could say I'm targeting PH drivers? They could go right ahead. I know what I'm saying. We have a body of persons within our PH drivers who are legitimate, who are providing our legitimate service, and then there are body here who are also providing other type of services because they are drivers for criminals. Because the criminals don't leave their areas. They just call these drivers and say, hey, I'm gonna make a turn. They're gonna do our job and come back, right? So they're facilitating. So whether we like it or not, the reality is we have been facilitating criminal activities and helping organized crime build in our country at the same time.
So here's where I'm identifying the disconnect, in part from the government's messaging. Because it seems as though there's two mistakes being made. One is telling the public what they think the public wants to hear. So we're going to stop the murder rates, we're going to stop the home invasions, there's threats against the government. Ooh, scary. We need an SOE. Now we're going after the 1% white-collar criminals. But as you're pointing out, crime is being more diffused. And the violence is at the street level. So if your concern is the violence, right? But then, of course, now, who is the big fish now? Because, hey, we've heard things about local gang leaders being in the UK. Mm-hmm. There are reports of Latin American drug cartel bosses being in Europe. Right? So this seems to be a thing now where the people in charge of the crime are not necessarily people that's still here. And the gangs are not necessarily under the control of the drug barons of yesterday, at least potentially not all of them, right? It's not so clear-cut to say, oh, the mythical drug lords, they're just telling the street gangs what to do. No, the street gangs kind of on their own. So there's that disconnecting. We're just kind of getting these very oversimplified statements about how we're going to treat with crime, designed for the public to digest easily, not necessarily to tell the public the truth or to give the public pertinent details of what's actually going on. Therefore, they will understand what we're trying to do with what the public is experiencing, because we experience parts of crime, whether we know all of it or not. But then it also goes back on to what I would call the semantic debate. And what I think is a mistake with regards to various stakeholders, speakers on these issues, right? When you want to go to crime plan versus anti-crime plan. Technically, anti-crime plan for industry professionals is the correct term, right? Yeah. But for the general public, it doesn't really matter all that much, right? And it's this thing about at times using insider technical language and debating the appropriateness of that when it doesn't necessarily have, one, that much difference in the general public, but two, it doesn't help and potentially harms because you're so focused on this insider language, right? That you're forgetting, hey, the reason why I'm talking to the public is not because I want to have insider language with law enforcement professionals. It's because I'm trying to provide transparency and accountability to the public. If I needed to speak to the police, I'll speak to the police away from the public. I'll speak to the police on the level of the police. I'll speak to the public on the level of the public, and we're not necessarily getting that. And it's almost like if it shows a lack of understanding or the disconnect in the sense of what is the purpose of this whole exercise. Is it to sound smart? Is it to say, look at me, I know things. I know 9mm versus 5.56. Or is it to say, look, public, this is what you need to know so that you have confidence in what we're doing, so that you will have confidence to support us in what we're doing. Because I fear that's the problem. The more the public feels disconnected, forget just the Trinidad and Tobago Police Services Trust and Confidence. When the DPP is being roped in, and he even start his job in the investigation with regards to the blame, and people ready to ditch him. You know, he now starting the Samaru shooting. The system is the trust in the whole system is being so eroded by the lack of transparency and accountability. And
that didn't happen today. It didn't happen today, and you can't blame this administration for that.
All of it.
I said, they can't blame that administration for how the public views it right now. It has been happening for a number of years, and we have to blame administrations across the board.
I would say this though, they're not helping.
Well, that's a different, that's another conversation. We could debate that in a different context. But at the end of the day, because of how information is now being shared in the public domain, whether factual or otherwise, information is being shared. Public opinion is now much more boisterous in terms of how they view certain things. Social media is now the platform for a lot of persons sharing information, whether it's misinformation or whether it's factual or opinions at the same time. But when you look at the amount of persons who actually, the public is, the general public is much more self-aware because information is being fed to them. The sad reality is nobody wants to believe the truth because nobody knows what the truth is. Nobody trusts that the truth is really the truth. Right? How do you determine what is the truth right now? Because there's no way you could determine the truth. Even if you go before the court and the facts is presented, the public is not accepting the facts that is presented in court as the truth. There's always some conspiracy behind what is the truth. And it will always have the conspiracy, Sean.
Well, the thing is, the added issue is we're debating further periods of a state of emergency. And I think, to be fair to Mr. Warner, right, he pointed out, you have on one side extraordinary crime needs extraordinary responses.
Yeah.
On the other side, it's a suspension of civil liberties. And is it justifiable in the sense of, can the SOE actually help solve, or is it being used to help solve the root of crime, right? But then he said this, the thing is with regard, and I think you've touched on this at times, and other people have touched on this on Talking About at times, it is also, a state of emergency is also a psychological message that tells citizens normal governance is no longer enough. A country may survive under emergency conditions, it cannot thrive under them indefinitely. And I think this is the thing, when the government, because you could say that, yes, that has existed for a long point in time. First of all, I would argue there was more trust and confidence in police not that long ago.
Yeah.
Under certain commissioners before Ayla, and I'll just leave it there, right? But then now, I don't need to have a crime plan, snowballs into what we saw with the commissioner before the current one, and then snowballs further with this one and everything we've seen, right? The whole situation is, when the messaging is sloppy, it's not random run of the, it's when the PNM said dotishness, when Hines said his dotishness, he wasn't having to justify a state of emergency. And one of the issues is, and now it touches on the economics, you want to have foreign direct investment, but we under a state of emergency.
Yeah.
And this is why it goes back to what you said from the beginning, the missed opportunity. Because the state of emergency could arrest the violence now, it could put a pause to it. That's all we really needed to do, so that we could fix things like legislation, because he said it here, it sends a message that normal governance is no longer enough. But if we want to deal with long-term crime problems, don't we have to fix the root cause of why isn't normal policing not enough, to get it to a point where normal policing will be enough?
True. Well, the sad reality at this point in time is that we dropped the ball. I just see the horse has bolted from the stable.
Yes.
There's no way holding it back. I do not think that the administration has a win-win situation at this point in time. They're between a rock and a hard place with respect to what is taking place. Crime is, I am saying, I am looking at it from this perspective that crime might be just, the level of crime is sitting at a location that the pressures will be building. A state of emergency release could release some unforeseen situations.
Well, yes.
Right? When you have persons starting to talk about civil rights, your constitutional rights, freedom of expression being stifled, those are precursors. Those are precursors. And if law enforcement understands, and I believe that they understand, those are the precursors, because there are a lot of experienced individuals who have been trained in certain areas, should know that these are precursors and red flags for things that you don't want to happen. Let us hope that the state of emergency addresses those concerns in the next period.
Address how?
By dealing with some of the issues that need to be dealt with. Now, right now we don't have, I cannot see how they're going to be able to, for want of a better word, muzzle anybody. This is not about muzzling. It's about allowing persons the right to view their opinion. I heard the Prime Minister made a statement that in Parliament that persons are allowed to go on platforms and make their views, and nobody's rights and freedom was taken away. She's true. That is true. It is. We are still able to, whether there's some persons who are being arrested for the manner in which they're protesting, protest action is still taking place, whether on social media or otherwise. Persons' views are actually being, persons are actually being able to express their views in a respectful in a respectful manner. Sometimes if you go beyond the respectful manner, and you could think of, but it has always been there, Sean.
But this is an example of what I'm talking about. The police speak about this issue with regards to protests during an SOE at locations like outside the DPP's office with a measured response. We empathize, we understand, except we have to have certain things done, we have to have order, we can't allow the situation to get out of control. The Prime Minister came across, at least initially, as though all them protesters is criminals. No pity, no compassion in the implied emotions of the literal vocabulary she used, as opposed to the media ambassador that was speaking in the moment. And to me, it does not, it adds fuel to the fire that you are attempting to muzzle when you do things like that, especially when someone who is the most junior, and I'm probably gonna, people are probably gonna start to, I don't know if I'm gonna get him in trouble by pointing out the fact that he did such a better job than just about everybody above him in the ranks. The most junior speaker on the issue had the most effective thing to say, as opposed to the actual leader of the country. That does not really help the argument that they are not trying to muzzle. And I'm not saying they are, but I am saying the public perception of that is growing.
So then there's two aspects of it that we have to be very careful with. If we keep linking, and we have been doing it for a long while, right? That law enforcement is politically motivated, and it's more political than anything else. When law enforcement who's supposed to be apolitical, and every individual is supposed to be apolitical and independent in how they operate, when they exercise that level of independence, you hear some argument about it was politically motivated. You just can't win with respect to that. I could say that. You just can't win with that. Sometimes law enforcement has to get trust and confidence in the public to deal with their situation. The government, trust and confidence in the public is for political gains. It's for winning another election. Whosoever is the administration, the law enforcement still has to deal with those in the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago for whatever side that you politically believe that you're aligned to, because you are looking for trust and confidence in those individuals to carry out your function. So your tone and your undertones and the way that you bring across your views, it might be more reserved and more geared towards building the support of the individuals. I do not know why the Prime Minister and how the Prime Minister makes, when she makes a statement, what was the intention behind it. That's the Prime Minister. I can tell you for law enforcement, when you're dealing with confrontational situations like those, you need to try to be not too aggressive because you don't want a situation to escalate. You always want to de-escalate. And your tone must reflect that. So that's why the officers would say that we understand that the persons want to carry the action because that is within the law. We understand that within the law you have a right to do certain things and we cannot take away a constitutional right because law enforcement has to answer different questions as opposed to a political entity.
There's one question I want to get out and then we have to end.
Sure.
Because we have 10 questions with Andy Johnson at 10 a.m. coming up next. Don't miss it. But politics, seemingly, this is the observed trend, right? It's mostly short-term thinking. And at least in the past, one of our callers spoke about the fact that when you have a police commissioner that's only there for 2 to 3 years, how they could put long-term initiatives in place. Now, to be fair, the current commissioner is assumed that if nothing goes wrong, and things have been going wrong, it's just have there been enough, wrong enough. He should be there for a considerably longer period of time, right? But generally speaking, it seems as though short-term considerations override anything else in our society. Do you think that the police will get the time need to implement and have the patience to see, because this is to the trust and confidence question. You know, you said it yourself, and I totally agree with you. Even with long-term crime, anti-crime plans, which you need for certain measures to think about in the long term, it's incremental gains, particularly with these soft measures. And there's no hard measures for trust and confidence in the police.
No,
it's all soft measures, right? Is the leadership, not the public. Public perception is that minefield that you have to navigate, whether fair or unfair. Is the leadership of the situation going to allow the patience for long-term incremental improvements? Or are we just, in order for the police to fix their reputation?
I would be very fair in how I answer that question. I believe that the current executive has the potential, the competence, and the relevant qualifications to get that done. They are in a very precarious situation because they are so many measures that is required at this point in time. Time is against them because personally the public wants immediate fix. Somebody fixes would not be immediate. It's gonna take some time. So that time factor is working against them.
Yes.
The overall dynamics in terms of how crime is changing and how crime has evolved and how the technology is being used to commit crimes and how they're advancing in technology in doing crime. Law enforcement is behind the 8 ball when it comes to that. We are far behind when it comes to implementing technology because majority of our systems is not technically driven when it comes to that because policing, the type of policing that you need now is physical presence, not technology. People need to see presence, people need to be interact, people need to connect with police officers again, to see them as part and parcel of their community now and working towards them and see them as counterparts in fighting crime as opposed to enemies. And that is a harsh word I want to use because that is what they see some police officers are.
Yeah.
You are the enemy. You're not. You're a criminal, and they throw in the same category as a criminal. Once you throw police officers in the same category and say, well, there's criminals the same way, or there's the biggest gangs that have, then you don't see the difference between a criminal gang and a...
Well, also on some level, shouldn't you be... Is it right that you're always uncomfortable when police are around?
Well, it's a reflection of the individual, but nobody wants to take an introspection as to how they view, because it's easier to defend it and channel your rage to somebody else than to actually say, listen, I am part and parcel of the problem. Right? A lot of persons don't want to do that. But I would say that the current administration has what it takes I know a number of persons in the executive and in the
so when you say administration, you mean police?
The police administration,
right.
In the executive layer, as well as some of the other senior officers. I know them. I know some of them personally. I know what they bring to the table. Unfortunately, I know what challenges they're facing at this point in time. It is not an easy fix for them, but like everything else, persons may change. Persons may leave the organization. The establishment of the of policing and police organization will remain. Whether we like it or not, the police organization is not going to be dismantled in Trinidad and Tobago. Policing will remain. How we do the policing is what we had to look at, right?
I think we have to close there. I just want to check to make sure we have any comments. Okay, let's take the comment. I don't want to wait for me to actually. Two Duncy head PNM Jumbies. One who said on national TV he is a PNM member. When did I mean, I think I did say technically, at least at one point, I was a member. I don't know if it lapsed. And when I say member, as in I was basically told to do so. I don't know how else to explain it.
Who's he two Jumbies?
I guess it's you is the other one.
Serious?
I didn't, yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks.
You're a PNM Jumbie, apparently.
Well, thanks.
I didn't, yeah.
Well,
I don't know when that happened.
Thanks.
And again, I guess the commenter hasn't been watching, I don't know, before the election. You know.
Well, I don't know.
I'm just saying. Let's put it this way. I kind of go out of my way to avoid certain PNM politicians because it does make me uncomfortable knowing that I basically had a lot to say about them and their job performance. So I'm not looking to try to have any personal relationships where I come and shake their hands to their face, knowing that, you know, be technically on national TV, but behind their back, I bad talk them. You know, I mean, that's probably not the best way to put it. But so, you know, PNM job, that's fine. If that's how you think about it, that's fine. We know who the UNC Jumbie is in this three-man equation. We have any more comments? Based on ASP Ali's thought process about the police on the road, ex-commissioner Uetsky brought that plan to the table, but the pushback was loud negatively, and so far that, well, I'm not sure what HK means. His contract was terminated. To some extent, yes.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
To some extent, yes. Right? And I guess part of the thing is the chickens coming home to roost for the members of the service, which unfortunately is police officers of the now, today, paying potentially for maybe decisions made yesterday. So it's not necessarily all on the current crop of officers, right? We have any more comments? The 1% was a term made by a senior Syrian businessman. No, the 1% is a term from America. We just adopted it. I know that was one of the first times it was used and it became big headlines, but that came from, well, I don't want to necessarily say exactly what time frame, but I'm fairly certain it came from America. It's part of their political debate because both parties would technically beholden to corporate finances in America.
I think
this is the Anthony Bourdain Trinidad visit.
Yeah, and I think it compounded the statement as to when the visit was there, who they sat with and what was reflective as he was.
Yeah, no. But I'm just saying the term wasn't technically made.
Yeah.
So we did import it because it was an American political term, right? To say who is being financed by the corporations and who's the 1% and the 1% is evil and so on. But the funny thing is in America, the 1% is an extremely large, because I think it's like 3 million people, something like that or more is the 1%, right? It's not just Bezos and oh god, the Microsoft guy, Gates. So with that said, we have 10 questions coming up at 10 a.m. with Andy Johnson, so we have to end that there. I think I might have had something else to say, but we have no more time. Thanks, Ashraf, for joining me once again. Thanks to the commenters, all of them, even UNC Jumbie, calling us PNM Jumbies. I guess, hey, you reached.
Guys are right.
Yeah, listen, you haven't accomplished anything on political commentary television until someone basically calls you out for a bias that probably doesn't exist, and I would imagine you've probably never been a PNM anything in your life, but
that
Yeah, you're rich.
It's
an odd feeling, right?
It's a sad reality of, that's a reflection of how our society is.
But by the way, to that commenter, I'm fairly certain I am just as blacklisted by the PNM as I am by the UNC. Just saying. Just saying. Even if I go to PNM functions, not that I wanted contracts or asked for it. I'm not that hypocritical, folks. I'm just your friendly neighborhood, scruffy-looking nerf of a commentator. Sure, Michael Small, this is Talking Point. Have a good weekend. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Stay safe. Don't forget it's nice to be nice. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
WESN